Thank you, Councilor Cronin. And now the debate will begin. And for the first question, I will turn it over to panelist Richard Lodge, Managing Editor of the Daily News.
Thank you, Grace. Councilor Cronin, what is your view of the relationship between the mayor and city council, and how should that relationship work?
The relationship by charter is one of a threshold between both bodies. That doesn't mean that those bodies cannot communicate with the mayor's office and back and forth. In the last 2 or 3 years, there has been a serious disconnect between the council and the corner office, in my opinion. This is one of the things that in the Cronin administration, I would strive to change immediately. I have currently 5 other councilors plus myself that have come out in endorsement. That's right there a showing of the disconnect between the corner office and the city council. We as a council want to get information. We as a council want to vet projects, to look at things and make our own determinations with time and proper research, and this has not happened. This has to happen in the future.
Thank you. Mayor Holliday, same question. What is your view of the relationship between the mayor and the city council, and how should that relationship work?
Thank you. That relationship is critical. The city council is the legislative body, the mayor's office is executive, but there are very clear divisions in terms of executive function and what the city council's responsibilities are. One of the things that I recognized early on as becoming mayor was that there was not an opportunity for the mayor to communicate directly on camera with the city council. So what I started doing was a mayor's update. Having served as the city council, there was not a lot of communication between the mayor's office and the council, and I wanted to change that. So the first thing I did was to do every Sunday night before a city council meeting, I sent a comprehensive update to every single councilor, identifying all of the things that we have been working on over the last 2 years. You might remember that in order for the council, before the charter was changed, the mayor had to be invited into the council chamber. 2 councilors went out to the office, brought the mayor into the council chambers, everybody rose, it was a very formal process, and then you spoke on whatever topic, and then were escorted out of the room. Now with the charter change, it's been wonderful to be able to come in and do a mayor's update directly to the council, giving them detailed information on everything that we have been working on, as well as the residents being able to see and on video what's going on in terms of mayor's update. And in addition to that, one of the most important things we had to do was upgrade our technology in order to be able to put this kind of information on our website for the residents to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Mahmood, same question. What is your view of the relationship between the mayor and city council, and how should that relationship work?
As I haven't been a councilman, but as a successful administrator, CEO of my children's cancer center, the mayor is the CEO of the city. The council is the board of directors. There has to be a close relation. We have seen presidents in the United States when there is a conflict crossing from the White House and come to the Senate to meet with senators and congressmen to get them all together. So the relation has to be close. When I decided to run in March for a mayor, I sent an invitation to all councilmen to meet with me so I can introduce myself, learn from them, and know what's going on. So not only from daily news or from the news media or anything like that. I was surprised when I met with 7, but the majority, some of them, they haven't met with the mayor for years. Actually, some of them presented the fact that we heard about selling Harris Street parking lot from the Daily News, that there was no discussion, there was no communication. Here are important issues are made internationally. As a mayor, there has to be retreats where all the city council get out of the city or somewhere they sit and discuss all the issues to bring all the residents together. These retreats are important and vital in a successful manner.
Thank you. I just received word that it might be necessary to turn up the microphones of the candidates. Apparently people in the back can't hear.
I'll recommend that they just get a little closer to the microphone.
Or speak closer into the microphone.
The secret here is it should be as close as the next one. I just learned that this week. Thank you, candidates. I'm honored to be here, and I appreciate that you're taking the time and you've all agreed to be here with us. I think it's important that we have equal representation from all candidates in a forum like this. It's great to hear from you. The format for this is that I'm going to ask first. There goes my head. This question is going to be directed to Mayor Holliday, but these questions will be available for all of you to listen to. But Mayor Holliday will be the first to address, and I'll be asking the question before each one of you, which you ask as well. Would you agree there is a growing divide between what we will call newcomers and progressives and longer-term residents and others against overdevelopment? And what would you do to bring these groups of citizens and business leaders together?
I'm not sure I agree that there is a real divide between newcomers, and because I see a lot of new residents, the reason they come to our city is because they love our history, the architecture, the walkability, our historic downtown, and want to be part of that, and that's why they come and live. I know that there is tremendous support from preservationists and people who care very much about protecting our history. And we also recognize that the demand of people wanting to come to Newburyport has caused our housing prices to go sky high. Consequently, there's been a lot of infill development, there's been a lot of push to modify homes, and as a result, we have been working over the last several years to modify our zoning so that we can protect more of the infill and protect the neighborhoods that are so important to people who live in our community.
Thank you, Mayor Holliday. Same question for you, Dr. Malud. Would you agree there's a growing divide between newcomers and progressives and longer-term residents and others against overdevelopment? And what would you do to bring these groups of citizens and business leaders together?
I would see the divide in a different way. Like any family, I don't think any family here that the grandkids or the kids, once they become teenager, or the younger generation come, there will be always different opinion. There's a difference between different opinion and having a different vision versus really a divide. The only way you can do that by bringing them together. You have to buy in people. You have to invite everyone. And you have to have these meetings where everybody have the same, like when I initiate the ballot vote, because two crucial things can change Newburyport for better or worse, but it's going to change it. And we are, as citizens and residents, we could not say for such important issues, our saying, I think that's very difficult to swallow that we cannot have our democratic votes. The same thing, when you think divide of overdevelopment, we have to study not like all these decisions or businesses or projects done halfway, or they have to be done a second time or a third time, like the Spofford Circle. You have to sit with them and look at overdevelopment. What are the fundamentals of the problem? First, is there a problem? Why is it? And how can we curb it to the benefit of the newcomers and the people? For example, affordable housing is not only for the poor. Affordable housing for elderly that they're fourth and fifth generation that living on a limited budget or fixed budget is by building homes that we can afford, 300,000, instead of every home knocked down or infill and we put it in $1 million. We have to balance that. And without dialogue and discussion, the divide will continue.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmoud. Same question for you, Councilor Cronin.
Thank you.
Be happy to answer. Would you like me to repeat the question, or do you think you know?
I'm good, thank you.
No problem.
The idea that there are winners and losers, or us versus them, in this community really has to come to an abrupt halt. Just the mere talking about this is clear that there is an issue that needs to be addressed. Walking around, you hear our seniors. They're not only concerned, they're worried about taxes and about water and sewer bills that are escalating out of control. The taxes in Newburyport in the last 8 years have gone up 38%. The state average is only 26%. That's worrisome, and it should be worrisome to people in government. We have to worry about our younger families, families that are coming into the town, into the community, or want to stay here as 1 or 2 children become 3 or 4 children. We have to improve our schools, we have to be inclusive, and we have to bring everybody to the table. So at the end of the day, we walk away as a community and not walk away as newbies versus oldies, or us versus them, or winners versus losers. That is not the Newburyport way. The Newburyport way is coming together, discussing an issue, coming up with a consensus, and then moving forward.
Thank you, candidates. My question will start off with the doctor, and it'll be the same question for all 3 candidates. I'll read it again if you need me to, but I think it's pretty straightforward. We all know about our beautiful historic downtown and the important role that plays in our community. Also, the industrial park and business park is a major factor for Newburyport. Specifically, Doctor, what plans do you have to invest in our business and industrial park?
First, historic downtown. I lived in the 1970s when Prince Charles was handed all the projects downtown London. And people wanted to build bigger, like New York City or like California. And he decided to preserve most of the things, subsequently as we call it the Industrial Park, where you can see all these new developments and skyscrapers. The same thing in Newburyport. We cannot go and see homes being demolished and they're historical like the 1690, and then we say we're going to charge you $10,000. This isn't the president. Now, to come to the industrial park, there are a lot of technology in the state and out of state. I lived in Tennessee and I lived in Missouri, where they managed to get Japanese and German BMW in the South, and we got all this car manufacturing moving from Europe, from Mexico here, because the governors had the vision and the dialogue with this. Industrial park doesn't have to be the word industrial. There's a lot of technology in the Massachusetts and inside New England that talking to this company and bringing them in, whether in the United States or abroad, because there are Europeans, like I mentioned, car makers like BMW and Mercedes. We would love to come and find a niche here or towns, because we know that Boston is mostly one of the most technological towns in the country.
I've lost track of the order. Council Cronin, same question, please.
Thank you. Last year, late 2015, the City Council, on its own, initiating from the council, voted to rezone the industrial park into a business park. We did that because there was no movement on zoning rewrites and rezoning of certain areas of town. It needs more than a name change. We need to energize or re-energize that area of our community. There are options that we can rely on. I would use the Office of the Mayor, the Chief Administrative Officer, which is like the Chief of Staff, to partner with the Chamber of Commerce to aggressively seek new, better, and expanded uses in the industrial park, in the business park. We should be marketing on our strengths as a community, not begging for the scraps. We need to re-energize that area, perhaps recruit satellite college campuses by marketing Newburyport's strengths, establish stronger relationships between business that's already out there and education. We are currently losing businesses to other local municipalities. I would also like to seek a business-style hotel down near the business park. My wife is a almost 2-decade employee of Rochester Electronics. It makes no sense to me that visitors from Singapore, from London, from the West Coast have to be shipped down to Danvers or over to Amesbury, where when they come into the lobby, they see little folders that direct them to the downtown in Amesbury. Thank you.
The creation of our industrial park was absolutely vital at a time when Newburyport was really struggling economically. The Newburyport Area Industrial Committee came together, uniting all of the businesses under one umbrella, and really worked cooperatively for many, many years to advance and develop our industrial park. But that model had changed. NABE dissolved. They're now still a foundation, a charitable foundation, but it really evolved into the Newburyport Business and Industry Park, hence all the new signs that are there. We have worked reaching out to companies through the Mass Office of Business Development. We have given certain tax incentive financing, most recently to a company that moved from Georgetown that took over the old Cabot building. We did it with Mark Ritchie, and we did it with Rochester Electronics. Some businesses have left for various reasons, more recently Greenport, but we are working as with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission on creating a whole new marketing strategy. We're working with a marketing company out of payroll, creating new logos, new websites to market that, and the business park has come back together again in a group representing about 64 of the businesses there. We work with the chamber, we work and invite representatives from the business park to sit on our monthly economic development action committee, so their voices at the table as we talk about their needs. One of the things that is critical is some of the infrastructure in the business park, which has to improve. But unfortunately, we receive only about $520,000 a year in Chapter 90 money on roads and sidewalks. But with support of the council, we were able to look at the drainage issues on Malcolm Point, and that project will be advancing. It's under engineering design now. So we do as much as we can each year in terms of infrastructure, and we continue to unite the groups, working with the chamber and the mayor's office.
Hello. So as a young adult in Newburyport, I know that my friends and I really enjoy going downtown. My question is, how do you plan to build a positive relationship between business owners and the Newburyport youth? And this is for Councilor Robert.
Thank you. The downtown area is always a magnet for after-school activities. The waterfront is a magnet for everybody. I see no impediments to creating jobs, creating activities, and creating a vibrant youth in the downtown, in our NRA park, in our waterfront park, in street. We've made vast improvements there. With council support, we have a splash park for the younger youth. My granddaughter loves it. So to me, the downtown has been a very positive experience for my family, for youth in the community. Certainly there are times when there are issues, as there were maybe 3 or 4 summers ago. Those are the exception, in my opinion, and not the rule. And I think working with the chamber and with youth services and Andy Edmond, who is a great resource, we can solve any issues that arise and continue to move forward as a community.
Mayor Holliday, how do you plan to build a positive relationship between business owners and Newburyport?
I think we have made a lot of gains in terms of the relationship between the business owners and our youth. I agree with Councilor Cronin that Andy Egmont, who came in to run youth services about 10 years ago, has done a magnificent job, and the Youth Commission itself, in terms of being available to meet face-to-face dialogues. The outstanding issue that seems to surface is when we have professional developments and half days of school. And that's when there's a whole mass of youth that go to the downtown. And that, we've talked to the superintendent, we've met with the chamber, we've talked to retailers, and we've discussed as a school committee trying to do some more options for youth after school on those half days. But one of the things that we're trying this year, which I think will make a real difference, is those professional days and half days have now been moved to Friday afternoons, as opposed to Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. And I think that will help. I think that the Youth Commission is plays a really vital role in terms of sitting down face-to-face and meeting with retailers through the chamber. They have a very strong group and be able to continue the dialogue. We have made advances and improvements to the downtown. Don't see the kinds of hangout at the Ridgefield that used to be many years ago. In Street, with the improvements in cutting down the turrets, improving the lighting, bringing back the fountain, has made a tremendous difference. And I know our retailers also need employment from our youth. And as you go into any of the restaurants and any of the smaller businesses, you see a lot of youth working there. So we just built on the things that we've started over the last couple of years and continue the dialogue. And I think we'll continue to improve those relationships.
Dr. Ramon.
Thank you. The partnership between businesses and youth is very important. And that's how we develop the dreams. We have kids that when they're in high school, I want to be a doctor, or a nurse, or a fireman, or a police. These businesses, they can have internship or mentoring, where we can either do as volunteer or as full-time work with these businesses. They can learn entrepreneurial. They can learn what they need to do. So a lot of businesses, if people will approach them, or youth services or school, and try to meet you with a partner, whether it's Anna Jade, a high school student want to be a nurse. She can go and follow. We used to call it shadow programming, where we can follow them and see, do I really want to be a nurse, physician assistant, lab tech, or what do I want? The same thing with businesses. There is in the industrial park or downtown, where they can learn responsibility and how they can be dependent, how to handle their money. The best example, Tony Blair was in France working as a cafe waiter, and that's how he learned about democracy, because that's how in the cafe they used to divide all the tips between everybody, and I was in one of them. So here is the example. You get the youth, instead of doing other curriculum, they have to think, what do they want for their career, and we partner with them. Businesses, like I said, in the hospital, or even having after school educational programs where you can bring advisors about jobs. Job market is ever changing now and challenging. And we know what are the jobs that are wanted now, they're not going to be the ones that you can get a job 5 years or 10 years from now.
Mayor Holliday, how is Newburyport doing in terms of the city's financial health, and what would you do differently in another term to strengthen the city's finances while holding down taxes for residents?
This is an area that was absolutely critical when I took office, and one of the first things I did was to create a very strong finance team. And because we had such a long list of capital needs that had been identified in our master plan and things that were failing, we had to address all of these projects. So we sat down and put together a very comprehensive capital improvement plan that we have been able to fund and move many projects forward. We also have been able to look at introducing a few new revenue streams. That included the downtown paid parking, and that included the meals tax. We also need to look at the possibility of additional revenue streams, because this year was a perfect example. Our local aid from the state was a negative 6.2%. So we are really on our own in terms of being able to take care of what our city needs. And we have been able to do a lot of that within our operating budget and within our bond capacity. We've created comprehensive financial policies, and we also have invested $425,000 into our outstanding pension liabilities. All of these moves have been reviewed by Standard & Poor, which gave the city a AAA bond rating. We are only one of 5 cities in the Commonwealth that have a AAA bond rating that helps us with our bonding and our interest rates. We have to continue that course, but we have finished dealing with most of the major infrastructure needs that had to be taken care of. So at this point, we need to look at additional revenue streams, and we need to continue to hold the line on our spending as we go forward, now that we've completed so many of the capital needs and maintain our AAA bond rating.
Dr. Mahmood, same question?
Can I recite something I wrote as a letter to the editor in Daily News? There is a misconception about AAA rating by S&P and Moody's. It's exactly like your score. You take a second mortgage in your house, your score goes up. You take a third mortgage, your FICO score goes up, as long as you're paying. But the day you cannot pay your mortgage or your bond, you will be bankrupt. Like happened in Michigan, happened in Greece, happened in Iceland. All these countries had AAA plus Moody's and S&P. And once a crisis happens and they cannot deal with it, it was that. The bonding and how much taxes you keep increasing or revenues, that's how your AAA goes the rating. So that's why we're having infill, because we keep taking bonding, which is like mortgaging your home, and we keep putting infill, so we can show Moody's and S&P that we have been increasing our tax base, so they will keep increasing us. Should be any economic crisis, that will hurt. The AAA will be a -F. So now to go to the state of the health. I sent to Eastern Maine just to learn as a simple. Can you give me the last 10 years spreadsheet? What are the revenues every year? What are the expenditure? How many bonds? And how they're the total? Today we cannot get this information. And there are a lot of projects that we talk about financial health. But we look at Sport for Circle that costs over $1 million. We look that we're going to spend money to build a tourist information center. While bigger cities, even Martha's Vineyard is a small shack when you get out in Vineyard Haven, 1,000 people a day. Is there a business plan? Do we know how many tourists went to that shack and asked for information before we go spend all that money?
Thank you. Councilor Cronin, same question.
Thank you. When Mayor Holliday took office in 2010, we had approximately $4.2 million in bond debt service. We're now up about $8.2 million in bond debt service. I will readily say that some of that was voted on by all of us here when we supported this building and the new school next door, as well as redoing the Dock Middle School. But a AAA bond rating, our success is for one reason and one reason alone. And unless you're sitting on an NC, look to your left and look to your right, because the people that are paying the freight are the taxpayers in this room. Very easy to continue to spiral up or chase a tail like a dog does. Because as Dr. Mahmood just said, that is what we are doing. What we are doing is to continue this unfettered building to meet our bond obligations. We keep raising taxes. We're looking for new revenue streams. That's a code word. We're looking for new taxes. We're looking for more ways to get money, and it can't be on the backs of residents anymore. We have to move forward, but we have to move forward with a plan. And right now, today, I do not see a strong economic plan in our future. And that has to be developed, and that has to be implemented, and it has to be done in the next administration.
Thank you. Dr. Mahmood, you get this one first. And this is one of the dandies for the night. This one includes both garage and waterfront. Building on my earlier question about a divide, there are things we're divided about, but I think there are things we can certainly agree that we are not divided about, which is that we want to get cars off the waterfront so that we can create an open waterfront park and expanded waterfront park. Some subtleties of what we may do with the fringes and so forth is still to be worked out, but I think we can agree that that is something we all are in agreement on. However, the question is framed as this: garage or no garage? And if you're against building a garage, how do you propose moving cars off the waterfront to expand the waterfront park, something residents say they want?
First of all, I would like to make it clear, the garage and waterfront are not only the issues of my campaign. Actually, when I advertised that I'd like to meet with people to start collecting petitions, and I made it clear, many of them here in the room, that the petition for the garage and the waterfront has nothing to do with the issues for my campaign. This was mainly because that we are losing our democratic right to vote. Something very important that, in my mind, would change it forever. Better or worse, the skyline of seaside Newburyport can be gone. And remember, like this, the patient was asking to their parents, read the protocol, read the treatment, take it for 24 hours, come back. Because there's no remote control that you can rewind and go back. Once you start that process, you cannot rewind it. Now, do we need a garage? I haven't seen a study showing that we need it except for 2 or 3 weeks during Yankee homecoming. Yes, we can move 100. Tomorrow, if I'm a mayor, I can move for you tomorrow 100 cars from the waterfront. I have shown satellite Google Earth, I didn't direct it, going for the past 10 years, how empty the waterfront park. Actually, for 8 months of winter, the city is occupying about 100 spaces by the platoons and the boat ramps that we store here. So you're blocking it already. We can move this, but that's not the right place. I have not seen a study that's scientific and evidence-based. Every study was flawed, which is a fraud. If this was a company, industrial company or a pharmaceutical, will be shut down. And I will be holding a sign in front of the old Kmart, I would work for food. Because you cannot make a pollution study, which was analysis, and you fool the whole city and tell them that was a study. And studying Newburyport as a rural area. Thank you.
Thank you. First and foremost, I am a strong, unwavering supporter of an open waterfront. Always have been, always will be. The waterfront belongs to the people. It is time to complete a park, and it is time for a mic drop and a congratulations for the NRA to walk away. We don't need anything built on our waterfront. We don't need a missing tooth filled in. We have view corridors. We're fine with expanded park. Now, when you do link that to the garage, if you choose to, I'm very, very concerned about the finances of this garage. I am not anti-garage. I'm anti-losing money, which is what I think everybody should be in the same boat when we look at our household finances. It's the lack of revenue that is going to bleed monies from our robust parking plan. This is going to stagnate our downtown revenue for the next 6 years. This is going to hinder expanding a park. Again, as Dr. Mahmood says, you could move 100 spaces off that waterfront tomorrow, and nobody is going to notice. Nobody is going to notice unless it's Riverfest, unless it's Yankee Homecoming,
Councilor
unless it's
Cronin,
two.
time.
That was 30 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Apologize, Councilor Cronin.
Okay. So we could move about 100 spaces off the waterfront today and nobody would notice. It's just Riverfest, Yankee Homecoming, and a couple of weekends a year. We could create a surface parking lot. That parking lot would accommodate at least 60 to 80 spaces. We also have a auxiliary lot on Hales Court. I'll circle back.
The issue of this central waterfront and the garage has been debated for 30 years. This wasn't something that I just decided that, well, let's just build a garage. As a member of the city council, I was on task force, study groups. We have stacks of studies that we have spent years and years looking at this. The NRA had formal memorandums of understanding with the mayor's office talking about getting the cars off the waterfront, but in order to do that, we needed a garage. We're talking about the future of our city and our downtown and making it more walkable. I believe that we need, for the future of our city, this garage. It's 207 spaces. We have $6.5 million to cover almost half of the cost of the garage. It will be architecturally sensitive, so it will meet the needs, and the balance of it will be paid for by the operation of the garage as well as parking receipts. I disagree that there has been flawed studies. Some have been modeling. There are a lot more studies that will be coming as we advance this project, but we have reached consensus on the waterfront, and that the NRA has agreed to transfer their property to the Waterfront Trust. You know, as our working group and as the city council, there has been consensus finally achieved after years and years of debate about this. And it's really important that we move this project forward, get more cars off the waterfront, and I see those parking lots being in great demand on the waterfront once there's a park and once there's picked up. We have to not let cars filter into our residential neighborhoods, and this is the way of preventing that from happening.
Thank you, candidates. I do want to remind you all that you have the opportunity to offer a rebuttal if you'd like to. You will be giving up time in answering your next question. Does anybody have any rebuttal they'd like to share? Dr. Wood?
Yes, I would, for fact checks, I would urge everybody to look at the last mayoral debate 4 years ago between Dick Sullivan and Mayor Holliday. Because the mayor said for 30 years, 10 years, this has been going on for that sign. Dick Sullivan proposed the garage at Merrimack and Tiffin. Mayor Holliday said no, it will be at Lombardy because next to it, and it is going to build the hotel. I would urge you to look at that debate to find the facts. Now, to come at the pollution, for example, the mayor is still denying that was fraud. It is, because there's a huge difference between a study and analysis. That was an analysis. They used the wrong data sets. They put Merrimack Street with 17,500 cars a day as a rural street. A rural street when you have wide fields, barns, and air moving pollution away. The instrument to measure the background concentration, not put in Merrimack deliberately. It was 2.8 miles away at Highway 95, where all those trees are going to be sucking the pollution, not the residents walking Merrimack Street. Thank you.
My questions will start off with Bob Cronin. This was a terrific weekend to be in Newburyport, celebrating visionaries Jack Bradshaw and Jonathan Woodman and Byron Matthews for their view of the city back in the 70s. Specifically, where do you stand on the New England Development current plan for Waterfront West?
The current proposal is too dense, too tall, and doesn't support the parking needs as presented at this point. Those are observations of a mayoral candidate, not of a city councilor. Currently, the planning office and planning board are there to assist applicants. In my opinion, they are spending way too much staff time on working with a developer to come up with a workable plan. Currently, there is nothing before our city council, which is usually the first step in a zoning change. This project needs to be scaled. If zoning considerations are made, significant accommodations must be provided to the city. Those accommodations can't be Chapter 91, which is waterfront access accommodations per state law. These have to be true accommodations to the city and the citizens of Newburyport for giving accommodations and zoning relief. The city council, not the mayor, vote on what happens at Waterfront West. So I've heard whispers that if I'm the mayor, I can't get involved in any of these negotiations. This is absolutely untrue. All meetings and negotiations will take place in public unless, in the unlikely event of an executive session is mandated. I personally have not found one instance of mayoral recusal in the last 25 years in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I will not recuse myself. I will have the city solicitor and staff to guide me, as no mayor should negotiate with seasoned real estate developers and their lawyers at a level like this. The initial P&S, I'm sorry, let me just finish my thought. The initial P&S for Titcomb showed how over our head we really were.
Mayor Holliday?
New England Development purchased large parcels of property over 15 years ago. And we have all been very anxious about what was going to be this plan for the waterfront. And recently, they have come forward with a conceptual plan for Waterfront West, the property between the Black Cow and Michael's Harborside. And the job of mayor is to let boards and commissions do their work. I can't be influencing them, seem to be influencing them, and so I listen and I I've met with New England Development, looked at the proposal. I have been listening to the residents in the city and am hearing very similar remarks that Councilor Cronin made. It's too dense, it's too high, there's not sufficient parking, and where are all the amenities? So these are the kinds of things that, as a community, we all have to have our voice. We all have to attend these meetings. We all have to be able to contribute to the conversation about what is going to happen in this area of our city. It will forever change our waterfront, and we have to get this right. It's very, very important that this development occurs that meets the needs of our community, as well as the Chapter 1, which is the access to the waterfront, which any development on the water has to have some type of amenities there. But it's really, really critical that we work together as a community and get this right. Thank you.
Dr. Mahmood.
Anybody buys a house here, you're subject to zoning. When you buy the land, you're allowed 2 stories, then you have to allow it. You cannot go and say, well, let me build it 4 because I can change the zoning because it's going to look beautiful and I can afford it. The Waterfront West and NAD, they have not provided us how they're going to have parking. Second, I would like everybody, and it will be in my website, to look at this area exactly according to projection, which you're right, that in about 30 years, at least once a year, there'll be flooding in that area that will reach Market Street and Market Square. This is not me, this is the government that is studying that. FEMA, they're building according to FEMA, because FEMA talks about now, not the future. Thank you.
Mayor Holliday, what would you like to see done with the former Brown School, and how would you, as a mayor, make that happen?
That's an excellent question. Youth Services has had a lot of transitions over the last year, starting at City Hall, and then they moved over to Kelly School, and then all the problems there, and then moving over to Brown School. They found a home there, and I think that their census and numbers have significantly increased, so it's clear that this program is working for the community and working for the youth. So we have this as a surplus building. We put out an RFP. We've received 3 bids. We've had 2 counselors sit on the review. We're asking the bidders to give us additional information. We see this as either a lease or sell with some affordable housing and some either rental or condos, keeping it small, the neighborhood small. And one of the things that we're asking of the developers is that they in turn fix up youth services in exchange for the building. And so this could be a real win-win for youth services as well as for us to upgrade the Brown School. The bones of this building are really good. It's not like the Kelly School where we had a lot of structural issues there, even though this is a 1920s building. So the bones are good of this building, so the renovations could be very exciting in terms of moving this project forward fairly quickly. I'm hoping that we will have a decision on which developer will be selected within the next, probably 4 to 6 weeks, and then we will, present the information to the public.
Dr.
Youth service in Brown School, first of all, the youth are the future of Newburyport in the country. You invest in them, you invest in the future. And before we decided the Brown School and the youth service, as a physician, if I come to the CEO of a hospital and I said I want to do that, or the CEO would hear about it in the daily news, or I say I'm going to decide in that and close doors as happened before here, I'll be fired. You have to have a business plan. You have to look at the fundamentals. What are your projections? What are you getting? What is the pros and the cons? What are you going to benefit from it? And you're not doing all that by yourself. You have also to invite the abutters because they live there, and also all the surrounding areas. So everything when you decide in it, you have to have fundamentals, and you have to have everything studies. So you don't end up like the sewer plant that you find, oh, I needed 20% because there was overhead. Or you have to keep doing a project once and twice and 3 times to get it done right. So regarding the Brown School, all the stakeholders in a public meeting, they have to be there, and all the discussion about the pros and the cons, what are the benefits, what are the risks, what are the alternatives.
Currently, the Brown School is being looked at in varying ways for varying uses, like the mayor has said. What I would like to see is more neighborhood input and not putting the cart before the horse and having 2, 3, or how many ever RFPs, requests for proposals, or plans come in that the neighborhood then has to choose from. I think that the way that this should be addressed is to have a neighborhood buy-in, understand what the neighborhood wants out of a public building that is now going into disuse, and addressing it from that angle, and not the other way around and saying, now neighborhood, you have these 2 or 3 choices. The youth services has certainly found a pleasant home that needs a little TLC there. So certainly any proposal needs to include upgrades to youth services. That is also used for private functions and basketball leagues. And it's a real asset to the neighborhood, even in winter. It's a location where the neighborhood goes to park in snow emergencies. So the neighborhood itself has to come back to the table and not be excluded.
Thank you. Question to Dr. Mahmood. What would you do as the next mayor? I'm sorry.
I would just like to take a minute to clarify. Once the Brown School was closed and we moved pre-KK over to the Bresnahan School, we started meeting with the community at the Brown School. We've had probably 4 or 5 different meetings with the residents in the Brown School area. We brought in the Winter Street architects who met with the neighbors before they started even doing the design of a feasibility study, and they asked questions of the neighborhood. They created the feasibility study. We even talked with the neighborhood about going out to maybe artist studios, and a group of neighbors went to Amesbury to look at artist studios there. We brought Winter Street architects back again to talk about where they were in terms of the feasibility study. We met with the neighbors. We talked about what makes sense for the building. They had given their buy-in, their input, and that's what the RFPs that were released, the requests for proposals to the public, to developers, were based directly on input from the neighborhood.
Okay, next question. Dr. Mahmood. What would you do as the next mayor to protect Newburyport's historic neighborhoods and to prevent the kind of destruction we saw in the work on the 1690 house?
It was a tragedy. Fortunately, that is preventable. It's like everything I have done in the past 30 years. If you follow policies and procedures, you can save lives. And the same thing, the preservation. There were policies, there were city ordinances that were not followed. It cannot be that, for example, a builder puts a building about 10 inch or 15 inch up and then will go unpunished. Or not punished, but at least restoring it. It's not the mayor to say, okay, give us 10,000 or 20,000. If we start violating our policies and procedure, which is city ordinances, and keep giving variances, and treat each person differently. All residents of Newburyport are equal. There is no resident more equal than others. The same thing with developers. They should be held to the highest accountability. Yes, we hired spending money on another zoning officer, but there were 2 building inspectors that were doing their job. If they were supported by the city hall and the mayor, and they stood firm about the city ordinances, the preservation of our downtown will be the same. I lived in a house on the Seine in Paris, in Côte de Bourbon, was built in 1600. As a tenant, I had to preserve it. I could not move anything without it. That house is still standing because there are laws in the city of Paris. You cannot, it doesn't matter who you are, a friend or relative, you cannot get away without anything doing like happened in 1690 or any other houses downtown under preservation.
Thank you, Councilor Braun.
Thank you. As I said in my opening, in 2012, I had sponsored an LHD initiative with then Councilor Katie Ives. Unfortunately, at that time, we did not find consensus on the LHD or 3 brokered compromises that I had suggested, which were expanding the Fruit Street Historic District, improving on a demo delay, and a demo control overlay district. Those were all 2012 initiatives. Fast forward to 2014, and the City Council finally passed a demolition control overlay district, which I happily supported. Actually, the DCOD preamble mentions by name Mayor Holliday's zoning rewrite, but to date, from 2014, we've had 0 zoning rewrites. Councilors have taken to writing their own adopting zoning ordinance without the help of the mayor. We've done downtown overlay, we've done sidewalks, we've proposed infill preventive ordinances. We've included make the industrial park more viable, as we mentioned before, by turning into a business park. In 2015, we voted to close a loophole with the ZBA and change the 2-family housing definition to protect our historic neighborhoods. Currently, in the last 13 months, we have lost 6 historic, modest-sized homes in the historic area that are under 2,000 square feet by expansion, by variance. There's another one pending right now. These are the things that have to be stopped. The 1690 house was an absolute tragedy. $40,000, $25,000, it's pay to sin. That's what we are doing.
Mayor Holliday?
It's really unfortunate the local historic district failed, and Councilor Cronin voted down, and I just want to be sure, even though he sponsored it, he did not vote for the local historic district. And that was really unfortunate. And we even tried modifying it so many times to try and get it down to what I refer to as the LHD, the Light Local Historic District. This was really important to protect properties on High Street, really important. And we have to figure out a way to do something different. But one of the things that we are doing right now is that we have a part-time zoning enforcement officer, and this position is really needed because we don't have a tremendous amount of staff at City Hall. We have a building commissioner, building inspector, but we need a person who is going to be the liaison between advisory opinions from the Historic Commission, the ZBA, and to ensure that every step of the way through that development, that whatever those decisions are in terms of preserving the historic properties happen.
Councilor Cronin.
Thank you. There was never any city council LHD vote, ever. The LHD vote was received and filed and never voted on. The mayor's participation in the LHD was, please take your signs down. That was the leadership we got.
Well, this question should lighten the mood. A majority of Massachusetts voters approved legalization of recreational marijuana. Where should a retail marijuana store be located in the city of Newburyport, if one were to come? Sorry, Council, this is for Council.
Currently, we have a, let's call it a marijuana overlay district in the industrial park. It's particularly for medical marijuana, and we have not addressed any recreational dispensary locations. There certainly should be a community buy-in. This is not something that we should just go and make a quick decision on. We, as a matter of fact, not that I'm advocating this at all, but we could actually do a referendum vote to see if we wanted to do marijuana in our community. With that being said, I think that the best solution is to bring many people to the table, advocates, law enforcement professionals, planning board, city council, the office of the mayor, and reach a consensus of what we want to do with this. At this point, it is here to stay. And is it something that we want to regulate as we do liquor stores? Or do we want to put this in a location that is certainly well out of the way? And that is going to be not the mayor's decision, but that's going to be a community decision.
Mayor Holliday.
Thank you. The legislature took a while to enact what they were going to do after this ballot question passed in our state. And that was recently passed, and one of the components of that is if you were a community that voted affirmatively, then you have to move forward, and you can't, unless you do a ballot initiative, probably a year and a half from now, on restricting it, you must go forward and zone or figure out what you're going to do about recreational marijuana. As Councilor Cronin said, we did zone for medical marijuana, and medical marijuana facilities, if you do not zone or make decisions as a community, can morph into becoming recreational marijuana. So we've been waiting for the legislator to come come up with the guidelines. We now have a very large cannabis commission at the state who will be directing this process. And at our last city council meeting, we have come up with a team of people to start this dialogue in terms of what we want to do as a community. Because it's important. We voted in favor of this, and so we need to come together as a community and decide how are we going to address this. Do we want to have, you know, pot shops downtown Newburyport, or do we want to have, you know, you could have up to 25% of your current liquor licenses. So we have to decide as a community, what do we want to do about this? And do we restrict it to the zoning that we currently have in the business park that is just for medical marijuana, or do we decide that there are places in the community that we would allow recreational marijuana? Thank you.
If the garage is zoned for marijuana stores, maybe that's a place to put it. I'm just kidding. There is a big difference, and people cannot, yes, there are state laws, there are federal laws. There is a huge difference between medical marijuana, which any physician support because there's benefit, and recreational marijuana. This is an infant that is starting to grow. It hasn't stood up in its feet yet. The state voted for it, but every township and city around us, they're starting to carve out Groveland, Newbury, and Amesbury. They're trying to limit stores. Yes, you can use it. Yes, you can put it in the back if it's recreational, but should we have stores or not? I heard from people saying it's going to bring tax, but again, studying and evidence-based will help us. Colorado is suffering. If you speak to people in Denver, they're suffering. You get tax money because you're selling your soul to the devil. Do we need that in Newburyport? It's going to be a vote. And actually, I talked to people about having, once we know the state passes it, the cities around us, so we learn about it, so the lawyers don't shut down or shoot down another initiative from me and say, no, it's illegal. So we're studying it, that it will be an initiative that will help everybody. But we have to separate what is recreational and what is medical.
We have time for one last question before we go into the closing statements, and that will be Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you, moderator. This question will start with Mayor Holliday. As the saying goes, hindsight is always 50-50. Can you discuss a decision you made or a position that you took that in hindsight you would now do differently?
Thank you. When I took office, the study committee for the local historic district had been in process for about 2 years. The initial survey looked very positive, that the community really supported this. And then I walked into that first meeting at the Belleville Hall, and I was amazed at the level of misinformation and the pushback from the community in terms of the local historic district. And again, we tried to, as I said earlier, to make it, modify it to make it a lighter local historic district. And I think that if I knew what I know today back then, I would have immediately said, look, this district is too large. It's the entire length of High Street. We had a very small historic district that's been very successful on Fruit Street. What we should have done is attached smaller neighborhoods to that existing local historic district, and then assess, and then each year add another component to it, and that would have aided in helping to protect our historic structures.
Dr. Mahmood?
It's not going to be regarding here in Newburyport, but I was very blessed in my career that I did research. I had to work with FDA, I had to work with industrial, pharmaceutical, and work with the largest cancer center in the world. The decision maybe I regret now, and I didn't stand my ground for it, is that a pharmaceutical company, I brought a drug from France, and I got the IND for it from the FDA, which takes a long time because of all the regulatory activity. And after that, I gave it to somebody to take care of it. The industrial, or the company, the company took the medicine and benefited from it and tripled its price. And not only that, they inflate it by saying the dose is needed as 4 times. That's what I regret, because I should have stood my ground and stopped that from happening.
Councilor Cronin, please.
Thank you. I'm going to twist your question around. One of the most disappointing things, maybe it's not a vote, but sitting here on September 13th, when half of our city budget is schools, and we haven't had one question to a mayoral candidate that is, in effect, head of the school committee. I'm proud of our students and educators, and I'm proud of our parents. I've mentioned her once or twice, I'll mention her again. I have a granddaughter in the schools. One of the things that we have to do is ensure a safe and respectful environment in our schools. We have to work with the administration and the union to prioritize goals. We have to communicate with the schools. When I say that, September 13th, we have a mayoral debate. There's school open houses tonight. School parents aren't here. We need, as a community, to come together, to work as parents, as teachers, as students, as citizens. Our communication is lacking. Our school councils are underutilized, are not listened to. Parents feel marginalized. I was in a meeting right here about 6 months ago, and at that meeting, every parent that spoke, not prompted, felt as though they weren't listened to by the schools. We have to improve that. Special education component of our schools. We have to create a school council that also includes special education parents. And then finally, Martha's Vineyard is presently seeking a tax on ferry service. We can do the same here and think out of the box to fund our schools properly.
Thank you to all of the candidates. And now we're going to move into the closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And we're going to proceed in the reverse order that we started. So Councilor Cronin will make his closing statement first, followed by Mayor Holliday, and then Dr. Mahmood.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight, the panel, the other candidates. I'm grateful to have shared some of my visions here tonight, and I will continue to work to make sure residents' priorities are listened to. Your priorities. Schools, streets, sidewalks, preservation, affordable housing, quality of life. Stay at the forefront of debate moving forward. I've said yes to many projects, large and small. I've said this needs more work to other projects. I voted no when process, presentation, and facts were poor. I've always put residents first, not developers, special interests, or party politics. I chose to run for mayor because I believe our little city needs a change in direction, to set the agenda for Newburyport and chart a new course away from the unsettled waters of us versus them. The projects and process we undertake is a reflection of a mayor's leadership. I know there is a better way from our present direction, a better course still moving forward, but with all of us rowing in the same direction together. Poor planning has delayed projects, cost us money, and created great divides between the winners and losers. We can't afford to spend $1 million on a baseball field when we don't own center field. That happened. Ignore odors from our treatment plant. Accept pay for our sin settlements that erode our neighborhoods, and treat our most precious resources, our employees and retirees, like numbers on a spreadsheet trying to seize control of their health care. Residents deserve better. As mayor, I pledge progress and transparency that will be the standard. I will focus on a short list of important priorities, including a waterfront park free from commercial development. I am the candidate to deliver the change Newburyport needs and take us forward together. I ask for your support and your vote on September 19th.
Mayor Holliday?
Thank you for the opportunity to discuss and debate many issues that are important to our residents as evidenced by your questions tonight. But I ask you now to think back to 2010 with our failing infrastructure, critical capital and school needs, antiquated IT, unplayable fields, and so much more. The remaining question that I put before the voters: has the past nearly 8 years brought major advances to our city and improvement to our quality of life? The school projects and increased funding, the senior community center, $6.5 million towards sidewalks and roads, master plan and zoning revisions close to completion, increased sustainability initiatives, rail trails, and consensus finally achieved on our waterfront. We made all of these advances, excluding the schools and the senior center debt exclusion, within our operating budget and bonding capacity and achieving a AAA bond rating, but also maximizing grant programs. There is work to finish, and the relationships developed over many years at a local, state, and federal level cannot be overlooked as you consider this election. My administration has demonstrated that we work well with the Democratic and Republican administration to meet the needs of our city. Voting facilities, school projects, intermodal facility, jetty repairs. We have developed strong, professional, dedicated, and committed team, your department heads, that work 24/7, as I do, to meet the needs of our city and its residents. This was clearly demonstrated on so many occasions, with Snowmageddon of 2015, fires in 2016, and safely managing thousands attending city events. Thank you for your support, and I would appreciate your vote on
Dr. Mahmood?
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming tonight, to the moderator, the panelists, my fellow candidates. The issues I'm running for are very clear, and I put them forwards about end of March. If you feel that they resonate with your vision of Newburyport moving forwards, I sincerely ask for your vote. These include the right to vote on crucial, expensive issues that could forever change Newburyport's seaside community for better or worse, such as the garage and Waterfront West. One of the biggest issues in the town, which could be easily resolved if there is a resolve to do it, is to put a curb on the unfair taxes and unconscionable spending that is spiraling out of control. The quality of life of our residents and equitable, affordable housing, not for the few elite of our retirees and elderly on fixed income and budgets. When was I going with my wife to get for the ballot the petition? It broke our hearts to see how many elderly that they had to sell their homes and move because they had to decide between buying medicine and food or paying for their taxes. That's unconscionable. The quality of life will be able to measure it. It's not a cliche or political slogan like others do. There are measures and indicators that we can easily find. Public safety, for a person to die crossing a road is too many. And the city didn't do anything for 6 months till another person, and then they put band-aids, they painted the asphalt white. Upgrading our school to meet the ever-changing and challenging job market, that's important. The technology is outdated in our high school. Safe water supply and adequate, efficient sewer system, and end to the infill that is outpacing our infrastructure without regards to roads or sidewalks or water and sewer. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of the candidates. And thank you to the audience. You were terrific. Thank you.
Very nice. She's talking to me. I like it. I think it's hot in here is what I think. I think it's a great senior center. They got to have a little air conditioning.
Oh, coming during the day. You must be hot number. Because look at me.
No, they're not at the meeting. NRA, Waterfront Trust Me. It's a joint meeting. Oh, Buffy and Sandy? Oh, yeah, okay. Hey, Rob, how are you? How you doing, Sherry? Mike, they continued it until October 10th, but we're wearing them down. October 10th, okay? The zoning didn't come up. Hey, how you doing? Working already? To be continued. Good job.
You're going to be the fullback, I'm going to be the tailback.
I was disappointed to see that it didn't get voted. It was about to get voted down. And then, or excuse me, continued it until October 10th. So we'll see the fight continue. I'll keep you posted. Councilor Cameron, how are you?
Thank you. Let me just finish this.